What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the Voice of the Valleys podcast yet again with your host, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well. I am literally recording this straight off the back of the last one, so I didn't want to make the last one go on too long. I know it would have gone on for probably about 2.5 hours had I not cut it off when I did an if and art of whether I was going to cut it off towards the end of the last episode. But we're going to pick it up straight where we left off in the last episode, talking about this scheme which the guys at Senedd Waste were talking about as of yesterday rather. Guys at Senedd Waste, or the Doge Whales, X page, been truly amazing in, as they say in their bio, exposing the millions of pounds wasted by the Senedd and Welsh government each and every year. This cash should go to our Welsh NHS, schools, and other public services, which is hard to argue with. Okay, you might have, criticisms about the entire service, like I have, the nature of it. You can make arguments as to whether it should be privatized, whether it should remain as a national health service, those kinds of things. But what we do have a lot of things at the moment is agreement that the system is not working as intended. It could be working a lot better, usually because there's, not only is there not enough funding for it in terms of what it's being made to deal with. Okay, in terms of if we cut back on a lot of things that were affecting it, then obviously we could devote more money to it. But other things like mass migration and those things are putting extra stress on it that we don't often think about, or they are often deemed untalkaboutable, if you will. Not to mention our own unhealthy lifestyles and stuff like that. But anyway, point being, you can have, criticisms of the system, valid criticisms, good debate on which is going to be the best type of system for national health and those kinds of things. But no really disagreement with saying that, for example, the money that could be used to decolonize the Welsh cake or whatever it is could then go to schools in the NHS, even if it's not going to make a massive difference. If you took all of the money from those schemes, which, I think for the most part are basically massive money laundering schemes, then you could end up with a lot better public services. Anyway, let me give you this example now. So we'll go through this thread. I bookmarked the post in this thread that I saw, and I will go through it all now. So this is to do with quote-unquote World Hijab Day, which is apparently Monday, the 3rd of February, 2025. And it says here, World Hijab Day. Let me flick over to this for you guys. World Hijab Day is an annual event that encourages women of all backgrounds to experience and understand the hijab, fostering awareness and promoting religious tolerance. Religious tolerance, not a thing we should have, in my opinion, at least regards to certain ones, maybe one in particular. So this is from the equality and diversity push that's going on within Wales, and this is from online resources produced by Grŵp Llandrillo Menai. We asked for full details of the resources they provided to mark, quote, World Hijab Day and any events that they had. A stand was placed in reception at Coleg Llandrillo, or Llandrillo, however you want to say it. In Wales, we pronounce two L's as a sound, to mark the event. A member of staff travelled from Bangor to Rose, presumably to man the stand. A, quote, senior equality officer, quote, equality manager, marketing team, and translation team all helped produce and promote it. So it says here, this looks like an itinerary. Let me just make sure it's still all lined up properly. There we go. So, World Hijab Day, 1st of February, 2025. Events and activities undertaken. Coleg Llandrillo, or Llandrillo, stand in Rose reception held by a learner at her request, providing demonstrations and information about the hijab. Event supported by the senior equality officer to the 3rd of February. Staff involvement. Senior equality officer supported a student-run event or stand at Rose campus. Senior equality officer wrote the tutorial resource package with support and review by learner services, wellbeing, and the teaching and learning team. Marketing, photographs and video with subtitles, social media posts, translation team, subtitles for video and social media posts. Senior equality officer and bilingual development and equality manager recorded English and Welsh voiceovers for the tutorial packages on one file. Costs. Travel from Bangor, Rose, one member of staff. Staff time unable to provide exact amount of time, so difficult to quantify this. Would estimate this to be around 15 hours. The estimated cost of this is about £350. Tutorial package, presentation, supporting resources, and 20-minute session plan designed by our Senior Equality Officer in consultation with members of staff from other teams and learners in the community. And they said here, as you can see here, we don't believe the resources are appropriate. As you'll see from the materials, they dismiss various concerns as quote-unquote hijab stereotypes, meaning truths. These include oppression and women being forced to wear hijabs, but these are genuine concerns. Yes. Do you want to know what happens in an Islamic country if a woman decides not to wear her hijab or niqab or whatever the hell it's bloody called? Oh yeah, they get beaten the shit out of, or maybe the male Muslim just can't control his animalistic impulses and decides to rape her. Yeah, those kinds of things. That's what goes on. So we're talking about oppression, quote unquote, not feminists. I love that one. The fact that they say it's not feminist. It's just like, come on. Can't be used during exercise. I mean, sure, it can. Might make things a little bit more difficult, more uncomfortable, Take it from a person that conducts exercise sessions with people, right? And does it for many, many years. It will make you warmer. It will make you a lot warmer. It prevents the sweat from evaporating into the air around your head. One of the places that you lose your body heat from the most is your head as well as your feet. So you've got shoes on, which is obviously going to keep a lot of the sweat trapped in your feet. That's why when you exercise, obviously sweat builds up in your feet. You get athlete's foot a lot, right? But then also you got something around your head, which is why people, if they want to sweat a lot, for example, they'll keep their hoods up and they'll run with hoodies on and stuff like that. You see fighters. Jack Shaw used to come into our gym when I was in the center, and he used to do his runs with his his hood up, and partially that's as well. You want people to not bother you. You want to get in, do what you got to do, get out, right? But it stops the sweat itself from evaporating into the air, which is ultimately how the energy is lost. And so yes, it will have potentially an effect on core temperature, because then that heat energy is not able to escape as efficiently. So yes, you do have to have concerns when you're doing this with exercise. Another big concern is when they're wearing it in the pool. Now, as a lifeguard, and we would have massive concerns with people wearing these in the pool, because obviously the water changes how it is shaped. It makes it a lot heavier. If you go swimming with clothes on, it makes it a lot heavier. You fatigue a lot easier, especially around the head, which is the thing you want to keep out of the water. This is just common sense. It's quote unquote conservative. Yes, the thing that keeps you in prison, because if you don't wear it, you'll get beaten, is quote unquote conservative. They're all forced to wear it. That's just truth. Restrictive. Yes, absolutely. There's no two ways about it. These are various genuine concerns. These are various genuine concerns, and these are things that these are things that simply should not be normalized in our society. And I thought there was another one. There's apparently 3 or 4, but I don't know whether this might be a different post. I'm not sure. Here we go. So this is obviously an emotive and sensitive topic. Murdered schoolgirl Sarah Sharif, who was subjected to appalling abuse in Woking, Surrey, was forced to wear a hijab to conceal her injuries. But we don't think legitimate concerns about oppression should be dismissed as quote-unquote stereotypes, especially in such an unbalanced way. This event should not have been held. Yes, hard to argue with that it is a symbol of oppression. It is absolutely a symbol of oppression. You can say that, women within Islam will choose to wear it and those kinds of things, and they may take pride in wearing it. Yeah, sure. The point being is what happens if they decide they want to take it off. What happens if it's a hot day and they decide they want to take it off? Not to mention that it's used to keep the animalistic impulses of the men in that society, quote unquote, in check. That's what it's used for. So absolutely, this stuff should not be normalized in our society. I don't care who that offends. It should not be normalized in our society. It needs to be gone. Culturally, it needs to be gone. Now, this is a great example that even people within that culture, people who are potentially even leaders, within that culture, prominent speakers within that culture. This guy that we're going to be showcasing here now has 611,000 followers on X, for example, says he went to the UK for Ramadan, and what he saw wasn't Britain. Even they are saying this now. This guy's name is Amjad Taha, right? It was bin Laden's dream come true. That's literally what he says, literally what he posted on X a day ago. It was bin Laden's dream come true. Muslim youth, especially students, were radicalized to the core. Some parroted Muslim Brotherhood slogans. Muslim Brotherhood is a terrorist group that I believe is a prescribed terrorist group in the UAE, but for some reason not prescribed in the UK. It's truly, truly backwards society that we're living in. Others look like they were just waiting for jihadist marching orders. British money, collected in the name of charity, was flowing straight into the blood-soaked fields of Yemen, Syria, and Gaza to fund terror and murder of civilians, not to feed the hungry. What I saw wasn't the UK. It was Londonistan and Birminghamstan, or Birminghamstan. Even these people are making the same jokes that we do now. Where universities preach victimhood instead of values, and lectures sound more like sermons from the caliphate than lessons in a democracy. Then I looked at the so-called, quote, activists, unquote, and it all made sense. These aren't champions of justice. They are frauds in protest gear. A self-proclaimed feminist screams for Gaza while Hamas rapes and kidnaps Israeli women, but she falls silent when women are hanged in Iran. Remember what happens if people decide to remove that hijab, huh? They chant against Israel but say nothing about Erdogan's police smashing dissent in Turkey. They cry for Gaza but turn their backs on Syria's genocide of Christians, Alawites, Druze and Kurds. And when the Houthis launch rockets at civilians in Saudi Arabia, Egypt or Israel, not a peep. These are not activists. They are either puppets of Islamist propaganda or clueless fools too blind to see that they are marching for tyranny, not justice. Despite, I have my thoughts on Islam, right? I have my thoughts on Islam as an ideology and a religion. I think it's evil, right? I think it's shit. But I can't argue with anything this gentleman said. And he's bringing up great points, He's bringing up great points, that they are frauds in protest gear, that there's a double standard when they're talking about what's going on in Gaza, but they turn their backs on Syria's genocide of Christians and Alawites and Druze and Kurds. At least he's talking about that. Fair credit to him, When Houthis, he's criticizing Islamic terrorist groups. It's kind of sad, right? I talked about this with, I believe it was Tim Davis. I believe it was Tim Davis in my podcast interview with Tim Davis. I talked about this with, that there are groups that are prescribed terrorist groups in the UAE. The UAE, right? There are prescribed terrorist groups in the UAE that are not prescribed terrorist groups in Britain. And as a result, they're doing their funding here through charity. It's truly, truly disgusting. But let's see what this gentleman has to say. I found what he said in his post there very hard to argue with. So let's see what he had to say.
I think you have more extremists in UK than you have in the Middle East. The things that some of the Islamists say in various mosques, they would not be able to say it all the way in Afghanistan, for example.
So how has this been allowed to flourish in the UK?
So the Muslim Brotherhood are the radical Islamists in Small Heath, in Al Amrak, in Birmingham, and other areas. We saw their voices. It was for Hamas.
Yes.
And Hamas, it's actually the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood. Muslim Brotherhood in my country, for example, UAE, is banned, but however, it's not banned in the United Kingdom.
So it should be banned?
Absolutely. They use the freedom of speech to censor your right to speak against them. They use the terminology.
Think about, exactly, Islamophobia just popped up on the screen there. Think about people now, the laws they're bringing in or the legislation they want to bring in to stop people from talking about the problems with Islam and to stop people from criticizing things, to stop people from pointing out, like we talked about in the last episode, like that guy was talking about, that the Prophet Muhammad was a pedophile. Okay, the Prophet Muhammad, if you now, under the new laws that they want to bring in, under the new guidelines for Islamophobia that they want to bring in, you won't be able to say that. You won't be allowed to say that, despite the fact that it's true. Okay, it is censorship. It is censorship under the guise of progressivism, of tolerance. Okay, it's just pure censorship of the truth.
Islamophobia, just to stop you from criticizing the fact that Islamic Relief is registered as a charity here, but all the way in Saudi Arabia, in UAE, it is banned because of the investigation that showed that these charities sending money all the way to terrorist groups in the Middle East.
Yes.
It tells you a lot.
Yeah, so there you go. So that came from Jake from Rattlesnake TV. That's his clip, which was shared then by Amjad Taha. But yeah, this, how can you argue? How can you argue with this? This completely inarguable. He's saying there that there's this group in the UK that's outright funding generating funds for Islamic terror groups that even in the Middle East, even in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, these kinds of countries, they're not allowed to operate. They've said their adherence to Islam, and I was going to take account there's believe there's different Muslims, Sunni versus Shia, that believe slightly different things. Admittedly, I'm not too clear on the differences between the two. But you have groups that are operating in Britain that wouldn't be allowed to operate in the Middle East, in these Muslim countries. And people still want to pretend that we don't have problems. These guys out there, where this is the prominent religion, have said, no, you guys are terrorists. You guys are terrorists. We're not having any of this. But yet Britain's like, oh, yep, all good. Islamophobia, Because people coming in are politically useful. Always politically useful. Always the political utility. But yeah, there's a great video that the UK has more of an extremism problem than the Middle East does. Now, you want to talk about highlighting one of the major problems that we have today with regards to this is in American society, this is in Western society in general. Why people are terrified in a lot of ways to have children, not to mention the feminist propaganda that has absolutely ruined the family, has absolutely waged war and got families, the members of families, to compete against each other rather than work together. This really makes you understand a lot of the reasons why they wanted to do that kind of stuff, because the target has always been the children. Yuri Bezmenov, I believe it was Yuri Bezmenov. I'll see if I can find the quote for you. I'll see if I can find the quote. We got Yuri Bezmenov, and then if I go to his quote, James Harvey summarized it in our interview. But where is it to? Oh, I can't find it. Let's see if I can find it here. So the quote, right? So he outlined, when he was alive, he outlined so many things about how the regime was run in Russia. So he's an ex-KGB, and he defected, I believe, to the United States. But he talked about before about the 4 stages, for example, of ideological subversion. So you have demoralization, which is where you educate an entire generation in Marxist ideology. That's where he came up with the quote, or I believe he said at one point, is that the reason why it takes 15 or 20 years to install a dictatorship is that's how long it takes to indoctrinate an entire generation of children. Then you have destabilization, economy, foreign relations, and defense systems, which is what we're really going through now. Violent change of power, structure, and economy, that's the crisis stage. And normalization, period of stability until the next cycle reaches crisis point, and then you just pretty much go through it all again. But the big point that he said, listen, this is how you basically conquer an entire civilization without a shot being fired. If you think about it, our entire civilization with mass migration, with all of these initiatives, has been conquered without a shot, right? But without a shot being fired. And this is why, because it's been demoralized, it's been destabilized, it's been put into a state of crisis, and now we are at serious risk of normalizing everything that's happened, and it needs to be reversed. It's simple as that. It needs to be reversed. And no Tory, no Labour, not even Reform is going to get us out of it. It's probably going to take more extreme measures than that. But as I said before, feminism, and I want to bring up this as well, where I won't show it just yet. Where is it to? I saved it a little while ago. There it is. It's an amazing flow graph, which somebody shared to me in the comments of my X, the conversations I was having on X the other day, because I posted a snippet of the interview I had with Tim, and somebody commented on it, and it was an amazing discussion that was going back and forth. Somebody commented and put this amazing flow graph in, which I'll showcase in this one, that really explains how everything, partly is wage war on the family, wage war on economic stability, wage war on national identity, wage war on all these different things, as part of this globalist Marxist agenda. Is it this globalist agenda is just Marxism or Maoism in a lot of ways, applied on a global scale. And that's where this flow graph really encapsulates that. One of the biggest things they've done is wage war on the family. Now, this clip, which I'll go over to now, really highlights a lot of concerns as to parents having, people like I have, who obviously public school is really the only option for people in my sort of socioeconomic category. Okay, homeschooling, because of the costs of everything, the costs of living. Both people often have to work. Okay. Very rare you're in a position where you can homeschool, not to mention the want isn't really there to do it anymore. But even then, there's things that the government are trying to do to make it hard to homeschool people because they want to indoctrinate your children into this kind of ideology. This lady in this clip, not that one. This lady in this clip sums it up perfectly.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest. And my husband and I
believe this is from Canada, Fairfax County. I believe this is from Canada, I believe. Canada is one of the worst places for this at the moment. Literally, if the parents don't toe the government party line, they'll literally take their kids away and sterilize them and pump them full of these hormones without their consent. It's truly, truly disgusting. Crimes against humanity, like I say.
have a difficult decision to make this fall as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways.
So parents said, don't want this. Don't want this, especially in elementary school. You know, the kind of things where they try and talk to people about their sexual, try to talk to kids about their sexual habits and that their kids might be lesbian and all of these things, right? Trying to indoctrinate them into this and normalize them into this, that this is the way that adults talk with kids and all of these things. Not to mention complete strangers. Say what you want. If you're in a tight-knit community like I am, often you know the public school teacher, so it's a little bit different. It's a lot of these big places, you don't necessarily, they're complete strangers basically a lot in the public school system, and you're leaving your kids with them for 6 hours a day. You want to know that they're getting the best schooling and that they're not actually a sexual predator. And America has a massive problem with this, for example, where a massive child sexual predator problem in the public school system. But the fact of the matter is that this is where the public services are starting to feel as though they can start to go against the people in pursuit of this agenda now. Because although the parents had a focus group done, they'd done a focus group with the parents, probably thinking that, they're going to go along with this, because we are right and who cannot see this as being bad, that kind of thing, because they live in this warped, disgusting reality, right? The parents said, no, we don't want this. We don't want you talking to our child about whether they might be born in the wrong body or what does it mean to be, their sexual habits and all stuff like that. And a lot of these resources that are being shown to these age kids are basically pornographic material. We don't want that. And then every single person on that school board said, no, we're going to go and do it anyway. How'd that make you feel if you were a parent? If whatever was being taught, it could be Islam. It could be that you're a secular community and they want to bring in, rigorous studies of Christianity and you're against that. Okay, how would you then feel if the school decided, no, we're going to go against that, we're going to do it anyway? Think about it in Britain, for example, where a lot of people are now all of a sudden starting to refine their Christianity again, right? Again, myself included. Point being is that we've seen that our schools are being Islamified. We're not okay with that. We're not okay with that. But the schools have decided, no, we're going to go ahead. We're going to do it anyway. So we have exactly the same problem. And do you want your child growing up in that system where you're powerless to do anything because you've got to work, your wife's got to work in order to simply keep the lights on and keep food on the table? Who's there to take care and who's there to mold the child's mind? It's going to be the teachers. It's going to be the teachers who they spend 6 hours or 7 hours a day with. So you want to make sure that they're on the right team, and more often than not, is what we're seeing now, they're not.
This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda.
Yes.
And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. In early childhood, It's supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with an ideology passed down from the top.
Yeah, agreed. Obviously, do have concern about the ideology that the parents are going to be passing down in some instances. Parents are not often, or sometimes not fit to be parents and those kinds of things. But ultimately, the responsibility and the outcome should rest with them. Absolutely. It's hard to disagree with that. At the end of the day, it's your child. It's nobody else's child. It's your child. And that's where the Democrats, in particular in America, and I think Labour try to do it a lot in this country. People start talking about it a lot in this country, particularly on the left, is that it's not the parents' child, it's everybody's child, our children. The state facilities, whether it is the school or whether it is counsellors, whoever it may be, start using the term our children. Be like, no, it's not your child. Our children, as in the parents' children. That's why the government always wants to wage war on the family unit. The family unit is the backbone of resisting tyranny, believe it or not. This family unit is the backbone of resisting tyranny. So I'm gonna stop that from playing again. So one thing I wanted to show you was that flow graph. Now we'll go through this before we go through the next part of what I wanted to go through. So please bear with me while I load this. Okay, so I can't quite fit everything in the border. I think it's a slightly different aspect ratio, but I will see if I can I'll flip it around a little bit so you can see the other sides of it, because it ties everything in together. It ties so many things in together. So there's a bit on here about the financial and the central bank digital currencies that they want to bring in. There's the education of children, which is obviously what we just went over. There's mass migration. There's the anti-meat propaganda, you will eat the bugs and be happy, the war on farmers, everything, and how it all feeds into this globalist utopia, which is what they want to, which is obviously what they want to filter into. So let me take you into that now. So this is what it looks like. This is part of it, and then I'll show you the other side of it. But it lays out quite neatly, lays out quite nicely how it all feeds in, how the goal is to transfer power. Obviously, that was what the COVID-19 system was meant to do, the largest transfer of power from the weakest to the strongest we've ever seen, as well as wealth. But you have here, so you have the COVID-19 program. Obviously, it went into mass formation where everybody was told to toe a line, what they called lock-stop authoritarianism, where you have police going out and, with their vans, arresting or pepper spraying or masking forcefully anybody that wasn't following the guidelines which they'd set out. Everything done there to weaken society, as you can see on the top left. Transfer power, obviously then that feeds into a biosecurity state. I never thought about this initially. I never knew about any of this. Never clicked for me at the time. The COVID passports, the QR codes and everything like that, how they all feed into this globalist utopia system. Now, the partner profiteering with all of the different countries, you had with all the different companies, you had the censorship apparatus with the media, enhancing funding, everything coming back to money and power. At the end of the day, everything coming back to money, power, and control. Everything weaken society, transfer power, weaken society, because it feeds into the globalist utopian vision. Ultimately, they see us as one big, collective farm. That's ultimately what they see the world as. The people at the heads of this, Larry Fink, George Soros, all of these people in the World Economic Forum, in the UN, they just see us as one massive collective farm. That's how they see it. Gender war and trans revolution, whatever it is, again, mass formation, eroding fundamental truths like men and men and women, and they can't be the opposite thing. Okay, no matter what you do, you'll never be the opposite thing. So again, if you can get rid of the concept of man and woman, you can get rid of for example, the roles and duties and responsibilities that come along with that. That ultimately then only weakens society and feeds into the globalist utopia, also feeds into undermining the family, which you can see, I believe it's in the bottom right, as you can see here, where education and children, you have undermined the family and indoctrinating kids against their parents, which undermines the family, which weakens society, which feeds into this globalist superstructure. Say what you want about people that using flow graphs, and I know I look like the meme of the guy, the really crazy guy looking at pointing at the chart that he's got on the board, but it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Anti-meat propaganda not only just weakens society as a whole, but also feeds into the war on farmers, which then feeds into the people that want to take over the farmers' land. And again, when I say it's a global collective farm, I'm not joking. Where BlackRock and companies like that are going to purchase all of the land and either, tarmac over it, put solar panels on it, or put more migrant plantations on it, either or. Then you lead it to dependency on people that are not your farmers and not native to your land, don't have your best interests at heart, and God knows what's going to be in their fucking food. The controversy with regards to Allah rolling out Bovaer and things like that. What else is going to be in your food? The things where they said that Bill Gates was going to start putting vaccines in food for people that refused to take it the first time. At this point, when we're dealing with people that are comically evil, comic book level villain evil, nothing is off the table. I know it sounds ridiculous when you say it, but nothing is off the table. Mass migration, it erodes nationalism, it erodes sovereignty, all of those weaken society, and obviously feeds into, again, this globalist vision. My dog's just decided to come in and give me a little bit of her mind. I think she started to tell me that I'm getting a bit too conspiratorial, but I'm not. I'm not crazy. But anyway, please just bear with me, guys, while I reposition this a little bit so you can see the other side of it. Okay, so this is the other side. Apologies, I just had to reposition that. So now this is the other side. So this is the side you couldn't see before. So now you see how the climate initiatives feed into this. So climate CO2 initiatives, they control centralized energy control. It's a massive wealth transfer. It's partner profiteering between government and these big corporations. Not only that, also then feeds in down here to the war on farmers, because a lot of they're trying to force these electric combine harvesters and all of these green systems on the farmers, which are absolutely crippling them in terms of their ability to do their job. So again, these climate and CO2 initiatives not only feed into the globalist utopia, also bolsters these things, which then have further knock-on impacts on fostering this globalist utopia, which is basically this mass global communist state. But then you have the financial and CBDC, which if you looked at the last episode, which I just recorded, it's not published at the time I'm recording this, but you saw Santander, where because they centralized financial control and the censorship apparatus, they stopped a man from withdrawing his money unless he was willing to prove, or unless he had some evidence to prove where it was going to be going. At the end of the day, now your money is not your money. That's a massive weakening to society because you don't even have control of your own fiscal resources anymore. So this is an amazing chart that somebody dropped for me in the comments of that post, and it's completely hard to argue with when you see that the end game is one massive giant global collective farm, and every single agency, the UN, the World Economic Forum, WHO is involved, and you see it this way, it becomes easy to see. It becomes really, really easy to see. So that's where we are in terms of that. And I had to feature that as soon as we were going through that. I had to feature that because it was too good not to show, and really just helps really tie everything together and show you how everything is tied together. That the school, the way they're schooling your kids is tied into it. They want a breed of generation of the Red Guard that will turn on their parents. The anti-meat, you will eat the bugs and all stuff like this, right? So yeah, truly, truly awful stuff. Truly awful stuff. But that's where we are. So anyway, that's that bit done. Let's go back because there were some more things which I believe that I wanted to feature in today's episode. So, right, this is a really disgusting one. So, this is, I believe, Hillary, a woman by the name of Hillary Wilmer from Child Protection, making the claim that the girls involved in what was going on in Rotherham, namely the grooming and the pedo rape that was going on by these gangs, was that the girls chose this lifestyle. I don't know if she's said this or she's referring to police officers that have said this. And yes, we know they've referred to these girls Samantha Smith has been quite vocal in how they've been describing the girls. They described them, for example, as white slags. They described them, for example, as packy shaggers, and these men's girlfriends and stuff like that, as if it was consensual, as if a young girl can consent to that. But it says here, in Britain, this child protection agent claims these girls chose this lifestyle, or these girls choose this lifestyle in response to the claims both police and politicians were complicit in covering up Britain's rape gang scandal, which, yes, we know that they were and are. They still are. That's why they won't go for the national inquiry, because they are complicit in the cover-up, and they have been for a long time. Let's see this now.
We have the evidence of these girls on the streets. We have at least one instance.
Just going to turn it up a little bit.
Where the police actually found somebody in bed with one of these young girls and nothing happened. We have the instance where South Yorkshire police actually raided the office and still nothing happens. That does suggest the police had some material, structural, institutional reason to cover this up.
I think there was a denial because of the perception that these were errant teenagers who were just a nuisance, and there was certainly, they didn't want to get in. I mean, there's certainly instances of where parents have gone out and found the children and told the police where they are, not just in Rotherham but elsewhere, and it hasn't been followed up. I mean, hopefully that is less common now than it was at the time, but certainly there was a perception that received wisdom was these girls have chosen this lifestyle. They're going out, they're going out with these men, and they've almost got what they asked for. That was really.
So I believe the claim that she's making, I don't want to, I'm not sure if the caption which I read before is entirely correct. Admittedly, that the audio is not very good. It's very difficult to hear. But according to the caption in the video, it says 2013 Hilary Wilmer from Child Protection is saying that the Rotherham is a vastly wider issue. Police were saying these girls had chosen this lifestyle, going out with these men, and that they almost got what they asked for. And it says, yes, these girls were groomed and they were victims of child rape and child prostitution, drugging. Yes, absolutely. They did not ask. They did not ask for this. And we know that fathers, for example, that tried to rescue their children from these gangs, from these dens, were persecuted by police also. They were, arrested and removed from the vicinity, but they wouldn't remove the girl. No, they wouldn't go in and remove the girl, but they would remove the father for trying to remove his own daughter from that environment. Yeah, that's how bad things get in the UK with regards to the police. I'm not sure what she's saying. I think she's making the point that it's a much wider issue, and is trying to make the point of saying that no, the thought processes of these police just truly bad, awful, and evil, because they thought that they actually believed that in some way, somehow, that this could be something that somebody chose, something that these young girls, which the abuse for some girls started as young as 5, that they can somehow choose this. That a 12-year-old girl hanging out with one of these men is quote-unquote his girlfriend, okay? I should immediately, any, good police officer should immediately be jumping on that as, a case of child grooming and child exploitation. But no, that's not the way it is in the UK, because goddamn, you wouldn't want to be branded as Islamophobic now, would you? Let's just watch that lot. Let's watch this bit of the clip again, because again, it's a bit difficult to hear.
Structural, institutional reason to cover this up.
And the stupid music in the background.
I think there was a denial because of the perception that these were errant teenagers who were just a nuisance, and there was certainly, they didn't want to get in. I mean, there's certainly instances of where parents have gone out and found the children and told the police where they are, not just in Rotherham but elsewhere, and it hasn't been followed up. I mean, hopefully that is less common now than it was at the time, but certainly there was a perception that received wisdom was these girls have chosen this lifestyle. They're going out, they're going out with these men, and they've almost got what they asked for. That was really.
So yeah, I think she's making the point. And if she's working obviously in child protective services, then what role did she play necessarily in maybe trying to expose what was going on? Was she complicit in it? I don't know. I don't know this woman's story, because I know that there are instances where, for example, there was a wedding ceremony, some kind of Islamic wedding ceremony between a groomer and one of his victims, and her support worker was at this ceremony. her support worker was at this ceremony. So Child Protective Services have a lot of things to answer for, in my opinion. Maybe this lady then does have some things that she needs to answer for, very, very possibly. But I don't know. I don't know. But it does seem that she's making people aware, or she's making the interviewer, news anchor, whoever it is, aware that there's a much wider problem with regards to this, and a much wider problem with regards to the attitudes of the police regarding these issues, that they actually saw this as something that could somehow be consensual, consensual and in any way good in society, I suppose. Now, then we're going to go into some just trying to think what order do I want to do this in. There's a couple more things which I want to go over. We'll go over this. I think I've watched this video before. I think it's a tremendous video because it really highlights just how much damage has been done by the modern perception, particularly with regards usually coming from a feminist lens, with regards to how, the dating and the quote, women should have the freedom to do whatever they want, and it actually ensures women don't actually get what they want. And it's a tremendous video that really explains one of the biggest things, and why I, for example, say that the breakdown of the family and the breakdown of the things that make a family strong have been one of the biggest things that have contributed to the downfall of society, is encapsulated in a video like this, which is an amazing video which I watched before, but Rachel Wilson recently shared it, so I wanted to go back over it on a podcast because I think it explains so much of the downfall that's going on with society so well. It's from Homath.
That means that all women dream of being with just a few exciting men, so there's not enough to go around. So if we match 1-to-1, that means that most women will never get what they're looking for. This used to work better because women kind of had to get married when they had less power, so most people would match 1-to-1. But now that you have your own money, we don't match 1-to-1 anymore. We threw all those rules out the window, and now everything is a mess. Because women are no longer marrying who they must, and instead they are pursuing who they want, and it's all the same few guys. Let's say this is you. This is the guy that you're looking for.
And that's just natural, right? Let's just say that because, what's his name? Jordan Peterson is quite clear about this, that in terms of socioeconomic hierarchies and power hierarchies, right? Everything's arranged hierarchically. Let's not pretend that that's not a thing, right? But women not only date across hierarchies, but up hierarchies also. That's what he's highlighting with this diagonal trend here, where every single thing where you have the men that are the highest worth, basically, whether it's because of job, whether it's because of strength, whether it's because of appearance, whether it's because of all these things that may play together, right? Status within the community, those kinds of things. All of us play together, and as a result, a vast majority of the women end up being, attracted to pursuing a very select guys, are going not only across the hierarchy, as we can see in the first graph, but up it as well.
Pursuing who they want, and it's all the same few guys. Let's say this is you. This is the guy that you're looking for, and he isn't interested in committing.
So for those who can't view this, for those who aren't viewing this and you're listening to this, I should have made this more clear. Really, is that in the first part of the video, there's two illustrations side by side, and on the one hand side you have a closer to equal, is the way I'm going to say it, because I can't really see what the top graph says, where back in times where the power dynamic, if you want to call it that, it was different, and women basically had to marry across directly in terms of where they sort of ranked in the hierarchy. There was none of this going up and down, aside from very occasionally. Is that you had 10 and 10 together, and 9 and 9 together getting married, and 9 and 8 together, 8 and 8 together getting married. Basically straight across relationships between men and women. people being paid basically sort of with the guy describes as who they had to be paid with. And then in the hypergamous system, which is on the other side, it's illustrating what happens now, for example, that the power balance has shifted. For example, women are now obviously responsible for their own money. They've incurred their own debt and those kinds of things due to the progression of the feminist movement and those kinds of things. That now, rather than just going purely simply across, where you have, for example, a woman that may rank as a 5, for example, would be matched up with a 5 on the other side, basically, where now she's not interested in pursuing somebody who's just a 5 anymore. She's only pursuing, somebody who's higher than herself on the hierarchy, 6, 7, 8, more so up towards 8, 9, and 10. And that's why you have from the male side, which is on the left-hand side, so you have 10 men arranged vertically on the left-hand side with associated numbers next to it. And you have the same on the other side for the women, but rather than women now being matched 1-to-1 with somebody on the same rank, they now, the lower ranks of the women simply just pursue the higher ranks of the men because they go across and up the hierarchy in this instance now. That's the illustration that we're seeing here, the best I can describe for those who may be listening. In the next illustration, we have a group of 6 women, and we have 3 men. And basically what we're seeing here is that is another illustration of the natural relationship going across and up the hierarchies, where you might have women that are 4s, again general classification in terms of number, but you have a 6, you have a 7, you have 2 7s actually, you have a 4, 5, and a 9, and you have a man in the middle with his arms flexed like this, and he's a 10, right? And you have 2 other men around him. You have an 8 and you have a 5. And the guy's making the argument that normally the 6 might match up quite naturally with the 5 men, but she's not attracted to him anymore, right? The woman who's a 4 in this instance might be, but in terms of it, all of them are pretty much attracted towards the guy who's a 10, okay? Up and across the hierarchies.
This is the guy that you're looking for, and he isn't interested in committing.
So what he's saying here is that the girl who's a 6 is interested in the guy who's an 8, but he isn't interested in committing because obviously he wants to get somebody on his level, or potentially even a little bit, more likely on his level rather than anything.
Because he's got all the attention he can handle.
And he has attention from all of the others.
And so does he. And here is the guy who's looking for you, and you're not interested in him, and neither is anyone else.
There we go. So you have the guy who's the 5, who may be looking at the woman who's a 6. But for example, she's not actually interested in committing because obviously she's looking for somebody that's across or above. And similarly with all the others, because they're looking for somebody that's across and above also. So now this guy who's a 5 is simply locked out of all possibilities.
Except maybe her, but then he doesn't want to commit.
Oh, she's a 2, sorry. I thought the one lady was a 7. Turns out it was a 2. It was just drawn really weirdly. I do apologize.
Her either. To make matters worse, dating apps give people the illusion of more options than they really have. So when you say,
please make it make sense,
that is your brain trying to believe that people naturally pair off with someone at their own level. But that's not how nature works. Nature makes all the women want these few men, and then these men want these women who are not interested because they want Prince Charming, although Prince Charming is busy, and then these girls way down here are pursuing these guys who don't want to be seen with them. People love to forget.
Now, that's going to be offensive to a lot of people. A lot of you are probably just going to have a knee-jerk reaction to that, but where's the lie? Where's the lie? Where's the mistruth? At a societal level, and in general, human nature, where's the lie? Where's the wrong statement? There isn't one. There isn't one, because that ultimately is how humans work. That ultimately is what humans do. So, as I said to you, it's hard to argue with it in a way, because that's just basic psychology, and it's just, you can argue with nature, you can be mad at nature, it doesn't change nature.
That we are nature, we are animals, and we have a lower biological nature. And nature doesn't say, I should pick someone appropriate for me. Nature says I should get the best I possibly can, which creates a market. This website on walrus reproduction says that one male is shared by 23 females. At certain points in our history, 17 women reproduced for every one man, and throughout all of...
Can you imagine that? 17 women for every one man? Jesus Christ.
Of history, only 40% of men reproduce compared to almost 90% of women. So
there you go, massive disparity there over history. 40% of men. Can you imagine like the genes that we have nowadays have been passed down from the lucky 40% of men? It just shows the importance of women as well, because obviously women are the gatekeepers to reproduction. And that's where, you know, I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this, but, you know, taking the focus away from the family and actively demonizing, pursuing a family and making the family unit as strong as possible from that perspective, because, you know, you got to go get that bag and stuff, has been one of the most destructive things for society, as Mr. Homath will illustrate for you now.
So this is not new. It's just what male mammals do when nothing stops them. And if you want to go back to everyone...
Notice this, and people want to levy this as restrictions on women, for example. It also makes the key point there. This is what males do when nothing stops them. You know, as people want to make the argument before that the system before was, you know, oppressive towards women and stuff like that. And sure, you can have that debate and make that case for sure. I think a lot of it has been, you know, very misrepresented in recent times. But, you know, he made the point there clearly that when the rules aren't in place, this is what men do as well. This is just what men do when nothing stops them. So maybe having the things in place that stop that kind of thing are actually good.
Matching one by one, then you have to go back to the rules that made it happen. But you said you didn't like those. So the reason that people no longer pair up one by one is that sexual freedom makes society collapse. This guy wrote a book about it.
Boom. Did you catch that? Did you catch that? Maybe that's why a certain creator said that the sexual immorality was very, very bad, and maybe that's why he rained down certain meteors on certain ancient cities and stuff like that. Let's rewind it and let's go back through from, say, this part.
To go back to everyone matching one by one, then you have to go back to the rules that made it happen. But you said you didn't like those. So the reason that people no longer pair up one by one is that sexual freedom makes society collapse. This guy wrote a book about it. And just look at him. He tried to warn you. Here, I know none of you are going to read this. The whole of human history does...
I'm actually, before he says that bit, I'm actually going to read the thing for you before he gets to the quote. So it says here, this is from a book called Sexual Relations and Cultural Behavior by Joseph, I should say Dr. Joseph Daniel Unwin or Unwin. And this is an address given March 27th, it's tomorrow. It's tomorrow in 1935. I thought it might have been today. That would have been pretty cool. To the medical section of the British Psychological Society. For the reference, this man, you could argue, if you're watching this, obviously you can see not the greatest looking man. And fair to say, he tried to warn us. It says here, thousands of years and thousands of miles separate the events, and there is no apparent connection between them. In human records, there is no case of an absolutely monogamous society failing to display great cultural energy. I do not know of a case on which great energy has been displayed by a society that has not been absolutely monogamous. Now, I will let the author, It's Homath, take it from here.
You are going to read this. The whole of human history does not contain a single instance of a group becoming civilized unless it has been absolutely monogamous, nor is there any example of a group retaining its culture after it has adopted less rigorous customs.
So let me read that for you again, ladies and gentlemen. Let me read that for you again. The whole of human history does not contain a single instance in which a group becoming civilized unless it has been absolutely monogamous. Absolutely monogamous. Nor is there any example of a group retaining its culture after it has adopted less rigorous customs. Given the state we're in today, he said this nearly 100 years ago. He said this 90 years ago. In the state that we're in today, it's very, very hard to argue with. We let the rules go, we let the reins go, we decided we didn't want the rules anymore, and then all sorts of depravity came in, and we completely lost all of our culture, and really now we're on the risk of losing our society and freedom as a whole. And this is the illusion that Rachel points out, where it says that the freedom, or the female presupposition of women should have the freedom to do what they want. It shows that women actually don't get what they want, but it ensures that in the end of the day, society doesn't get what's good for it either.
Here, I know none of you are going to read this.
And it's very good. It's very good at masquerading as a good and pleasurable thing. It's a bit like the parable where the most cunning trick the devil ever pulled is convincing people that he did not exist. So anyway, let's go back to where we were in the video.
Rigorous customs. So the reason the guys you like don't like you, and the other way around, is because that's what people do when you let them.
There you go. It's just human nature. It's just human nature. And because human nature inherently predisposes us to this destruction, it may be important to remember that rules are not always a bad thing. Rules are not always a bad thing. Oh, I wonder who said that. I wonder who said that. I wonder whom everybody seems to have a problem with, or a lot of people seem to have a problem with, to the point of saying that he doesn't exist and those kind of things, but may know us better than we know ourselves. I wonder. But anyway, that was an amazing video. It really sums up why our societies have fallen, is because that's just what happens when we remove the reins. Now, this is a big point. I was tempted, I don't know whether to do a third one on this itself. God, 3 episodes in one day. But this is... we'll push it a little bit further. Screw it. So, there's been a lot of recent developments with regards to the conflict between Rupert Lowe and whom I call Containment UK. I'm going to call them Containment UK. So, I'm going to open up a couple of tabs a minute, guys, with some posts which I think we will go over. Because recently, the reform team, I think, have made a catastrophic blunder with regards to this, and have really, really put their foot in their mouths in a big way. They've really shot themselves in the foot in a massive way. So, let me close these a moment. Let's go here. So what happened recently is that Reform released the quote-unquote findings of their report, which was done by an alleged impartial KC, I believe. And what they did was, the biggest thing that they did, I think in the eyes of most, is that they sort of dragged people into it in a way that those people did not appreciate, and that those people, they actually ended up endangering a lot, potentially. So let me bring you Mr. Lowe's response to something that Reform put on their X page. So let me see if, because he's made the claim, Rupert Lowe's made the claim, Reform are publicly shaming his staff, publicly shaming him, engaging in a character assassination campaign. And obviously he's doing what he can to defend them, and he argues that every claim that's been levied against him is completely false. So, what has happened? Where is he? Because he responded directly, and he's absolutely furious about it. He's responded to Nigel Farage. There we go. So I'm going to show you this post a moment. So Nigel Farage... Oh, it was just another... Sorry, my door opened. It was just my dog paying me a visit. Maybe she's a paid actor on behalf of Conform, on behalf of Containment UK, to come in here and disrupt this part of it. So, hey, girlie, do you want to say hi? Come on, up. Let me see if she'll say hello. Come here, up. Come on, up. Come here, girl. Come on, you get your 15 minutes of fame. Here you go. There she is. There's my lovely Bailey. You can see her just about. Yeah, there we go. Hi, Judy. There she is. See, say hi to the camera. Yeah, you're not going to say hi to the camera, are you? Right. You be a good girl now. Good girl. Right, so let me flick over for you. You can see Rupert Lowe's post in the bottom, but it says here, I have arrived in Lincolnshire ahead of our campaign launch this evening, just in time for a quick pit stop at that damn Buster's Inn. So good old Farage, make Britain great again, you know, keep calm and carry on. Yeah. And Rupert Lowe, not mincing words and not pulling no punches, and with a heavy ratio, which you can see right here. You're a disgrace for publicly naming and endangering my staff, Farage. There's been a lot of comments in there, but this is where it is. Please see our statement below. Now, you can get the full statement on Reform's thing, and maybe we'll go through that at a later date. But Rupert made a response to it, which we'll go through anyway. But it says here, Reform UK statement. 25th of March 2025, following complaints received from 2 women about the conduct of Mr. Lowe and members of his male staff, Reform UK appointed an independent King's Counsel to investigate the matter. Her report is now complete. The independent King's Counsel found there to be credible evidence of unlawful harassment of 2 women by both Mr. Lowe and male members of his team. Contrary to Mr. Lowe's public statements, one of the women's allegations were made against Mr. Lowe himself. One of the women received threats that Mr. Lowe would take legal action against her if she cooperated with the investigation. Both women gave their statements to the KC as sworn statements under penalty of perjury. Mr. Lowe has refused to do the same. Both women lodged formal complaints with the ICGS in January. Reform UK will cooperate fully with their investigation. In the interest of transparency, we'll publish a full report here. The only thing is, they published full report including the names of Rupert Lowe's staff. They also published the names of Rupert Lowe's staff. And he says here, you are a disgrace for publicly naming and endangering my staff. Absolutely shameful behaviour. And he has a good point. A lot of the Reform branch, a lot of the Reform people have turned basically into Farage cultists. And you never know. These cultists may go out and do the same thing. They started to turn into the same things which they claim to be against, which are the same type of, cult fanatics that, are in Trantifa and those kinds of people, which is why I call them Containment and Conform UK. They are another branch of the Uniparty, in my opinion. We want to say, oh yeah, you need to get into power to do all this stuff. Well, other parties are making traction and showing that you can actually have integrity and, not turn on big parts of your voter base and turn on people this way for having valid concerns about the party and those kinds of things, just wanting to make it the best that they can. So I'll go through Rupert Lowe's response. There's another response from Ben Habib here, which Rupert reposted. And we'll go through Rupert's timeline as well, which I reposted. Ben Habib said, and I'll flash over for you. So often has Nigel Farage got away with throwing people under the bus that he thought he could just trample Rupert Lowe. Guess what, Nigel? He is rightly standing his ground, and thousands upon thousands stand with him. Absolutely. Hard to disagree with that. Also, for all the Democrats that said that egg prices were rising under Trump, well, egg prices have now plummeted. So let's have a look at this, shall we? Let's have a look at the timeline. So this is what Rupert Lowe posted on the 25th of March, 2:37 p.m. Let's look at the timeline. This is important. I gave the Daily Mail interview on 25th of February. Farage's team was made aware of that interview on the 26th. These complaints were raised to the party chairman the day after on the 27th. Their complaints were submitted to the independent parliamentary body on the 28th of January and the 2nd of February. Why did it take almost a month for these to be raised within Reform? The day after the Reform leadership was made aware of my mildly critical interview. Coincidence, is it? No, I'm a person that really doesn't believe in coincidences for the most part anymore. But it is suspect that it took so long, This was a really bad case that Reform are trying to make it out to be. Similar with the remarks made by Zaya Yousaf saying that he was threatened by Rupert and all of these things, that later took about a month or however long it was, 2 months to come to terms and to bring those forward. Funnily enough, again, right after that he gave this mildly critical outtake on the Daily Mail. Really suspect with regards to Reform, that how it's coming out now. But this is not new. This is not new for Farage. This is what people forget. This is not new for Farage. He done this with Gerard Batten. He done this with Catherine Blakelock. He's done this many times in the past. There's a reason why people like Enoch Powell and those kinds of people would not endorse him. They clearly saw this coming. Sadly, that Rupert and then Isabel Oakeshott had the gall to go on TV and joke about it, about Rupert's political naivety. Yeah, I'm sure he went into it thinking he was going to make a difference and wasn't expecting a knife in the back. Most people don't expect that. Most people don't expect that. And Rupert didn't deserve this. Rupert did not deserve this. And it is very, very suspect. It's very, very suspect. What also is very suspect is that those remarks made by Zaya Yusuf, did not make their way into the report. Now, I believe I've actually got the next couple of posts in chronological order. So then we have another post by Rupert after that. And it's a relatively long post, but we'll go through it. So Rupert then posted this at 3:21, same day, yesterday. I have spoken to my team. They are horrified that they have been publicly named by Reform. Separate to my own action, they are now in touch with a legal team. By Reform putting their names in the public domain, they have been libelled and endangered. It's shameful. These are young men and women trying to do their job, and they have been assaulted with these lies based on zero evidence. We have heard nothing from the official parliamentary body, which is where this should happen, as anyone in Parliament should tell you. I will be urgently arranging to discuss this with the Speaker. Naming staff based off an investigation they have funded themselves, which again raises questions about the independent King's Council, right, is disgusting. Especially one that is essentially the word of two individuals against the rest of the team. They have no evidence of anything. It's just their opinion, which the Reform investigation has believed with no questions asked. The complaints only being raised once disciplinary action had begun against both individuals whom I have never named. Vexatious complaints designed to cause as much damage as possible, which Reform has seized to smear my name, a fictitious, one-sided version of events. It's one thing to go for me, but to publicly name and attack my staff and smear my name, that's not right or fair. Now, there was one comment. A lot of the comments are on Rupert's side. There was one comment, which I don't know. There we go. So this is an example. It says, Rupert, you named your staff yourself. But it says here, as you'll see, I have been asked to post this statement from my team. Now, there is a difference between being asked to post something based on behalf of your team and then being labeled in an official document without knowing it. Okay, so there's a reason for that. Now, obviously, they kept the people that made these allegations, these two women that have alleged to have made these allegations, right? They've kept those people redacted from the document because Reform have published a document on their website. So you can go and download it. You can read the full document. They've redacted the names of the people that are making the complaints. They have not redacted the names of Rupert's team members. So there is a massive difference. Yes, Rupert posted this, but there's a difference between being asked to post a statement on behalf of your team, which I do believe most people would be pointing out in the comments. There we go. The names are public. It's not about naming people. It's about slandering them publicly with unfounded allegations. There's a huge difference. Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's a huge difference between somebody going and you saying, look, do me a favor, put this out there on your socials. And then in this full report, which, by the way, was published, according to here, with Rupert's lawyer communicating with the KC, she did not give her permission for the report to be published today, really raises more questions. So again, this is where I said the people not seeing this for what it is, are the ones in the Farage cult, are not seeing Farage's track record of throwing people under the bus for actually sabotaging a lot of populist initiatives, such as Brexit. Well, not so much Brexit, but UKIP, not so much Brexit. There's a vocal voice for getting Brexit off the ground, but then in what should be a crowning moment of glory when the Brexit referendum came 52-48, he resigned from the head of UKIP. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this is the post that I'm referring to now. My lawyer has communicated with the KC, the King's Council. She did not give her permission for the report to be published today. This is a tweet that Rupert made at 5:13. I was absolutely not responsible for the release of the report. She wanted to respect the agreed deadline. Reformers acted shamefully. Even here, coming down here, the BBC have spoken to the KC. The BBC has been told Ms. Perry did not expect her report to be published on Tuesday, with the decision to do so taken by the party. So even the King's Council that they appointed to run this investigation did not know and did not agree to this report being published today. So I personally believe that this is just another point to try and assassinate Rupert's reputation, because he did speak up against the party leadership, or even voice mild concerns about the trajectory that the party is going in. Mild concerns that are going to be shared by his constituents, most likely, and much of the people of the country that have supported reform up to this point, because they see them morphing into more of what the establishment is, and they see potentially that Farage is just simply getting caught up in his own fame, his own acclaim and those kinds of things, enjoying being a celebrity. And in my opinion, I think he's going to screw over the British people one more time. I don't think he's the man for the job. Elon Musk saw that quite clearly, and obviously that was a massive hit to Farage's ego. Obviously, Elon Musk has been commenting on Rupert Lowe's posts, so it's just jealousy and envy on the part of Farage that's going to capsize it all, and people just can't see it. People just can't see it. So they go after the one guy that's actually been voicing a lot of concerns and actually following the concerns of reform's supporters and his own constituents. He's actually been a stand-up guy from what I've seen. And that's why he must be cut down. It's a little bit like, when we talked about it in the one of the last episodes with Jada Franson and Hope Not Hate, and the BBC Panorama documentary with Britain First, actually doing activism, actually making inroads into it, and for that they must be silenced. So they got Jada Franson to stab Paul Golding in the back. But anyway, this is the other post, which was posted at 7:43 yesterday evening. I've just spoken to parliamentary authorities about the disgraceful harassment and intimidation of my innocent staff through this reform report, their names and the report, which were released without the KC's permission today. My staff have also spoken to the police tonight, having been invited to express the understandable worries. Reports have been made. Parliamentary security are concerned and are now involved with my staff. None of this is acceptable. Dragging my staff into this mess to smear my name is desperate and disgusting. In my 67 years, I've never seen such unprofessional and vile behaviour. So clearly, they not mincing his words. And actually, Wolf down by here, which I followed for a little while, raises a great point as well, saying that although these staff were not technically reform staffers, they were de facto reform staffers. Who's going to want to work for Nigel Farage after this? If you're a talented young person, why would you risk your reputation and safety for a party who will throw you under the bus? That's a valid concern indeed, and a good thing to point out. And again, some people just can't see it. Some people just can't see it because they won't allow them to see it. They won't allow themselves to see it. They've basically made reform, from what I've seen, into this golden calf. They basically made Nigel Farage, more than anything actually, into this golden calf. And they're worshipping that because they're like us. They're like us at the end of the day. They've gotten so desperate, and they see this, in my opinion, what's being exploited just to keep them exactly in the position that they're in. I don't believe they're an alternative to the Uni Party whatsoever, but they're being erected to look just convincing enough as to fool enough of the people to split the vote at the next election so that we get Labour in even more. I just don't think some people will allow themselves to see it after getting so emotionally invested in the last election. And don't get me wrong, I got a lot of egg on my face. After the last election, because I heavily backed reform. I was the one reposting and retweeting all of the memes with Nigel Farage being like, from the Matrix, and Farage and Trump next to each other, Farage, Trump and Musk, vote reform, those kinds of things. I was that person, right? I was that person. And then they went and done this. So that's where we are. That's where we are with that mess. Interesting to see what will come of this. I haven't heard anything more since then. I'm just checking Lowe's page now. So there's a pinned post here from 3 hours ago, which is Reform released their investigation without the author's permission. They had a Wednesday deadline. My lawyer was engaging on Monday evening. Reform released it on Tuesday against the KC's wishes without speaking to me or my staff. Vile behaviour. And he's quoting a Telegraph article. And then he's just back to his regular posts, which I can't say that I disagree with for the most part, such as this one, for example. Where's it to? We can, quote, rely on immigration, or we can build a country. Let me show you this post. or we can build a country in which British men and women feel comfortable raising their family. I choose the latter every single time. Prosperous, cohesive, safe Britain must be our aim. And deporting alcoholic Pakistani paedophiles is in no way controversial. Stop importing, start deporting. What is there to disagree with? I don't think you'll be seeing any of that rhetoric coming out from Farage, given who he's appointed as his chairman after a very generous £200,000 donation. So there you go. I don't think Reform are going to be known as the party of integrity when quite clearly, at least in my opinion, they can be bought. They can be bought by anybody, regardless of values, regardless of who they are, regardless of how much they stand in contrast to what the party used to stand for. As quite clearly they can be bought, and that is not a measure of integrity. There are going to be a couple more things that I wanted to go over. So this lovely gentleman, I don't know who it is on the camera, but speaking about the facial recognition cameras that we spoke about 1 or 2 episodes ago, and literally problem, reaction, solution, and they'll never deal with the problem itself because they don't want to deal with the problem. The people who are in charge of these kinds of things, no, they don't want to deal with the problem. They want to create more of the problem so that they can push the solution that they want to. Problem, reaction, solution. I think the James Lindsay and other people have called it, agitation, reaction, solution, those kinds of things, right? The problem, which is deliberate and which is measured, is agitation. It's pure agitation. And then the reaction, which is what they're counting on, will allow them to push the solution, such as CBDC, so facial recognition, those kinds of things, right? Eventually, the British people, for example, are going to get to a point where they crack. They can't take this anymore. That's going to be the reaction that's going to allow them to push more surveillance state, because they need it for their social credit system and those kinds of things, which tie back to central bank digital currency and the flow graph, which we looked at the start of this episode. But have a listen to this gentleman explain a bit quick.
They've allowed the centre of cities and towns, and more villages, to be fair, within this once great nation to become hellholes, where people don't go. You wouldn't dare to go there. You certainly wouldn't go there with your kids. You certainly wouldn't let your wife or your girlfriend or your mother or your sister go there on their own.
No way.
So then suddenly, they come in and go, well, we could always have like live facial recognition cameras so we can catch the criminals. That sounds like a great idea. Yep. I would have been opposed to that. I would have considered that some sort of, Big Brother thing, 3, 4, 5, 10 years ago. But now, that's the problem, reaction, solution, mate. Obviously, they want to roll it out everywhere. That's the point. It becomes normalised. You kick off about it for a bit, and then facial recognition cameras pop up in Oxford, and you kick off a bit. Maybe there's a protest or two. And then they pop up in Liverpool and Manchester and everywhere else. And then suddenly, they're everywhere. But what are you going to do about it? And so it just becomes normal. It's the apathy, because they need these cameras absolutely everywhere to have the social credit system that they want.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be the apathy. It's going to be our apathy that will be our downfall. Make no mistake about it. It's going to be us not taking the hint 10 years ago when people were saying no farmers, no food, when buy local, all of these things, when it was same as me, same with my parents. Never took any real heed of them, never shopped local. I've started making more of a conscious effort to do it now. Other things, carry cash, don't pay for things by card. The other thing is, for example, one of the biggest things with us at the moment is insurance companies. Insurance companies tie incentives to pay by card so that you get a reduced rate on your bills. But again, it's all tying back into the same thing. They're all in cahoots with it. But ultimately, as I said, they want the same social credit system and same surveillance state that what China has. China is the model. China is a model that has about 700,000 or so surveillance cameras that can profile you simply by the way you walk, and can work out, even if you're not looking at the camera, can work out the way you are by your gait, by the way you walk, by mannerisms and stuff like that, in just your body language. Can always work out where you are, every single point of the day, what you're doing, your internet traffic, obviously monitored, every single thing. You even need to be, give your ID, be facial recognition to go to the toilet in a public place, and you get your toilet paper is rationed. You get a certain amount of toilet paper assigned to you, okay, in a public toilet. It's truly, truly disgusting, but that's what they want, because that is the kind of state in which you can just have total perpetual control, and then people have no say. People have no say. That will be straight out of 1984. But ultimately, that's what they want. Problem, reaction, solution. But our reaction needs to be right. And that's why I'm looking at people right now political alternatives that are really looking to go with the grassroots political approach. And I've got an interesting conversation coming up next week with somebody, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Yeah, they seem, although I have my reservations personally about the the initiative and about some of the rhetoric that they've used in the past, individuals and some of the people that they might have within the system. On the whole, they seem to have a tremendous focus on actually making a positive difference in their communities. And I've got a person sitting down with me to talk about it next week. It's going to be amazing, in my opinion. At the very least, going to be a lot of value gleaned from it in terms of the activism that they're doing. And we really, really need it, because do you want to know something about the state? You want to know why police are so despised in this country and why we hate them for the fact that they're incompetent, for the fact that they're politicized against the people. Like we said, the fact they've been programmed to hate their people and their communities. It's shit like this, right? So this is a video, it's only 6 seconds long, but on episodes past, I've covered the sheer incompetence and the sheer malice of police all up and down the country. From prosecuting people for what they say on social media to literally being thought police, to being flagrantly incompetent when it comes to handling criminals that could then go on and harm people in the community because they've allowed them to escape, and those kinds of things, despite the fact they've got like 3 on 1 and they're still not able to apprehend the guy. Truly disgusting. And then you get these police officers that, let's just show the respect that they have for you and your property. You probably find this fun. A lot of people will laugh at this. That's how that's how entrenched this has become, how normalized this has become. The fact that some people won't be horrified by this, they'll find it funny. There are people that will find this funny. Sure, in a fucking world where everything was rosy and perfect, I might even find this funny, but this is not funny with the state of the country that we live in. This is a police officer urinating in somebody's backyard. You can see on the video, this is a police officer just urinating in somebody's backyard. This is the epitome of what's going on in the UK. Police officer incompetence. Not only that, the respect that they have for the British people and their property, that they'll piss in their backyard. Will they do this in the backyard of a freaking Muslim rape gang or Muslim rape den? No, of course not. But they'll do it in the backyard of the British people because they know they're not going to do anything. Again, problem, reaction, solution. And it just shows the complete lack of respect that the police have for the people that they are supposed to protect and serve. It's no longer honourable anymore. Again. So when we're talking about this, some of you probably still believe that the COVID vaccines were safe and effective and that they actually stopped transmission of coronavirus and those kinds of things. I think I'm going to put a nail in that coffin today. And I am sorry. Because a lot of you probably still want to believe that. A lot of you still want to believe that the lockdowns were a good thing. Or you still want to believe that a lot of the things that happened during lockdown were good. The persecution of people that just wanted to go out to parks was a good thing. Just wanted to retain some level of normalcy was a good thing. I'm going to share this with you now. So this is from Nicholas Hulscher, and I bookmarked this post from X. He's an epidemiologist and administrator at McCulloch Foundation. And he shared this post, and it was a new autopsy study. Cardiac microscars in sudden death following COVID-19 vaccination. Let me show you. So, cardiac microscars, or MMS as you call them, found in 3 patients who died of unexplained cardiac arrest. All had 5 to 6 COVID-19 booster injections. Key findings. Microscars in arrhythmogenic regions such as the pulmonary left vein atrium junction suggest a structural substrate for arrhythmias following the COVID-19 vaccination. Pre-death arrhythmias, atrial fibrillation, and non-sustained ventricular tachycardia. Now, we're not mistaken, tachycardia is when your heart beats extremely fast and irregularly. It's quite similar to fibrillation, as you can see here. Occurred in patients with multiple booster doses. Possible mechanisms. Spike protein production in cardiomyocytes, triggering immune activation, inflammation, microvascular injury, and fibrosis, leading to myocardial scarring and electrical instability. Corroborates our previous research on COVID-19 vaccine-induced cardiac arrest, linking myocardial scarring, arrhythmias, and sudden death. Remember what was said about people that had concerns about this vaccine? Remember what was said about people that wanted to bring these things up, sudden death and things like that died suddenly, and they were censored, voices were censored, people will stop talking about this kind of stuff. Well, we're learning a lot of new things now. Remember people that tried to tell people that the COVID came from a lab? COVID came from a lab leak in China? What they were called, the persecution they suffered. But yeah, you have it right here in black and white, and with a couple of red balls, a couple of red circles. So here you go. So this is a little graph for that. But yeah, it's not looking good. As you can see here, the patients, as you can see in this table here, all had 5 to 6 COVID vaccinations. Thank God I didn't go for my boosters. Thank God I did not go for my boosters. As I said, if I'd known a lot of these things regarding, if it wasn't so heavily propagandized, I probably wouldn't even have taken the vaccine in the first place. I think I said before that the only reason that it was given up to us, as soon as it was especially, is because in my role, when we were reassigned to help out with the vaccination centers and the vaccine rollout, is that we were assigned to help out, and a lot of people coming in for these vaccines were elderly and already immunocompromised. So obviously, with all the hysteria going on, we didn't want to affect them. So before we started, we had to have it. I had it, believing that it was going to reduce transmission. That was my main thing. I have a heavily immunocompromised father who's getting, into it later stages of life now. So it's a massive concern for me. And that's the only reason why I took it. I knew that I wasn't necessarily in massive danger. I knew that it wasn't necessarily going to kill me because I was perfectly healthy at the time. And yeah, if only people were allowed to speak the truth, eh? If only people were allowed to speak the truth. It turns out you're not allowed to speak the truth about a lot of things. You're not allowed to speak the truth in the UK because the truth offends. Truth offends people. Other thing about it, not allowed to say, but you really, need to, in some ways, is the state of corruption in the political system, especially in the US at the moment, where you have stocks, the value of stocks, and the amount of money people are getting from those stocks when they're members in Congress versus the S&P 500. So I'm going to flick back over now and check out this graph, right? As this graph progresses. So this is from 2020. As you can see here, the dates here, 14th of the 3rd, 13th of the 4th, sorry. 13th of the 4th, and then 2nd of the 6th and 22nd of the 7th in 2020, and how it trends as time goes on. And you'll see here, for those who can't see the graph, the rate of increase with regards to members of Congress buying the same stocks as members of Congress versus the S&P 500 is drastically different. The Congress is drastically outperforming the S&P 500 by nearly double. Now, this was shared by the Joe Rogan podcast account. Even Joe said, not a financial analyst. Anybody want to interpret? So let's see what people have to say. There was one comment in here which I saw here. G-Fan Fleet, Doge the Congress. But basically, this is what's going on. So Congress portfolio went from 10K to 26,804. The S&P 500 portfolio went from 10K to 14,619. So the outperformance is about 83% better than the market in terms of Congress versus the S&P 500. Translation, either every member of Congress is a secret Warren Buffett or they're trading on information that the rest of us don't get. Now, judging by some of the IQs in Congress, such as, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and Nancy Pelosi, I think Nancy Pelosi is very intelligent in in that sense. But even says here, keep in mind that the average IQ of a congressperson is somewhere between Maxine Waters and AOC. Says at the bottom here. Not very high IQ people, okay? But yeah, the free market, this isn't a free market, it's a rigged casino, and Congress is the house. Yep, that's how it goes. That's how it goes. Unless you want to trade, no, you can't do as good as Congress, because obviously they're trading on things that they don't have. And I think I actually quoted that post. Yeah, I'm actually going to find the post. I found it quite funny what I posted about this. Where is it to? I don't know if I'm going to find it. Because I said, I'm not going to find it in the actual post itself, because it has so many quotes. I'll find it on my thing now. Where is it? There we go. So I quoted it, and I said, can we classify this as insider trading privilege like they try to classify everything else as privilege today? And I think I make a pretty good case. I think it's very privileged to have information that others don't have, to, make shit tons of money, to make, millions of dollars and stuff like that on, a couple of $1,000 salaries, those kinds of things. I think it's I think we should, be allowed to classify that as privilege and maybe wage war against that kind of corruption. And speaking of corruption, let's have a look at some corruption as we'll finish off today. Because it's been 2 hour-and-a-half episodes back to back, so that's been fun. My voice is getting a bit tired. But I mentioned before, when I was talking about the Jada Franson, this might be something I got slightly wrong in that conversation, is that she was making the argument that just for going and approaching people and making suggestive comments for a video that Bonnie was doing to that guy in the Five Guys restaurant, that amazing based Christian Chad, that they should be just locked up and criminalized. And I actually made the case saying, well, no, not for this. Not for this, because no crime has necessarily been committed. I'd say that for men just doing that, it's sleazy, it's disgusting. Shouldn't necessarily be criminalized and thrown in jail for it, right? But she should be thrown in jail for this, if this is true. So this is something that James Harvey shared today. And it's Bonnie Blue allegedly schlocking on some guy's dong during an NBA game. And you can see behind her, there's kids behind her. Now, in the video, there's not, concrete evidence of her doing this, but it's certainly, there's no smoke without fire, If it looks like it and, sounds like it, then odds are it is it. There's no reason for her to be leaning over in this fashion. But she's doing this in the middle of an NBA game, crowded stadium, likely for a political stunt in a video, right? And there's kids behind her. And James Harvey's right when he says this is sex offender level shit. This is where I will say this does deserve to be criminalized. This should be criminalized. Okay? She should be criminalized for this. But here you go.
Fantastic, and clearly their coach has his head in the game.
Keep an eye on this gentleman here. There you go. No reason for and it certainly looks like something. He certainly had a bit of a reaction there, which you can see. Let me mute this video. It certainly looks like he has a bit of a reaction. Keep an eye here. He has a bit of a reaction to something. But the point that James is making is that you can see here, these are children. In this part of the video here, just above the coach's right shoulder, as you're looking at him. So on the left-hand side of his body. Rewind it a little bit. So Bonnie Blue's down here in the corner. I hope you can see my cursor. Bonnie Blue's down here in this corner. It's quite obvious where her head is going. And these are children here. These are children in the back. This is disgusting. this depravity needs to end. Remember what I was saying about the cultural degeneracy that we're in nowadays? This needs to be end. This is why this needs to be stigmatized. This needs more than just stigmatization. That needs to have some serious repercussion, because that is disgusting. The walking sperm bank that is Bonnie Blue. That's just truly disgusting. And that'll do it. That'll do it as a bit of a recap as to what's been going on. I hope you learned something from this episode, particularly with regards. I think the biggest thing you can take away from this episode is that illustration of what happens with the flow graph, which we had a look at for the globalist utopia. But not only that whole math video where it talks about what happens when you take the reins, when you take the society's rules away. You take especially the rules around monogamy and those societal constraints away. That even from, you can make the argument as to whether the religion behind it, the prominent religion behind it, especially in the Western world, is true or not. Even from a most secular liberal standpoint, you could see how taking those rules away did not benefit society. Society collapsed, at least partially, as a result of taking those rules away. So maybe, just maybe worth revisiting those rules a little bit. Maybe understanding that rules aren't always bad, and not all rules are meant to be broken. Anyway, that'll do it for today. Have a good evening wherever you are, guys. Morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you found it useful. And yeah, we'll catch you again very, very soon. This has been Voice of the Valleys, and have a good one. Godspeed.